Red Ray Gun Limited presents
The Benji and Nick Show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're listening to The Benji and Nick Show. Only, Nick's not here again, he's off somewhere. So you'll never guess who's joining me this week.
They might, Benji, you know. They might just guess.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I suppose if they listened last week, yeah, they'll probably guess it, won't they?
Yeah. If not, then shall I say who I am?
Well, that'd be nice, yeah, why not?
Hello, listeners. It's Jamie Anderson again. Sorry about that.
Sorry, guys. Yes, that's right. Our good friend who we phone up every week has gladly agreed to join us for yet another.
You say gladly, Benji. I mean,
well, he hasn't.
I was
had much
sort of
choice.
guilted into it, really.
Yeah, Nick turned up on his doorstep and was just crying there, and he's like, oh, "Please do it, please."
I know.
And poor Nick there. Yeah, our good and regular podcast host, Mr. Nick Briggs, is sadly not able to do it this week. He's still a bit under the weather, but hopefully by next week he should be on the mend. But yeah, we're sending out all positive vibes to Nick and healing vibes his way.
Get well
He'd hate
soon.
that, wouldn't he? He'd hate me to say healing vibes.
Oh yeah.
He's not into all the fun magical stuff.
No, but
like
do you know what listeners could do? They could tweet him healing vibes. I bet he'd love that.
Loads of and if you can do the emoji little peace sign as well in there, then that'd be even better as well. Healing vibes, man. I'm sure he'll love it. Yeah, why not? Hey, why not? So this week on the Benji and Nick Show, we are talking about Starfleet. Which will be an interesting one, especially since we're joined here with Jamie Anderson, who is a lot of I suppose it's your sort of avenue is puppetry, puppet television, really. I suppose not so much Starfleet, but it's certainly an interesting person to have to talk about it.
Well, we'll see later on, won't we, Benji? You can be the judge later on, dear listeners. But it's slightly weird because Starfleet was suggested by one of your listeners last time. And I thought, yeah, let's be really mean to Nick and make him watch that. And I've been hoisted by my own petard and am now having to watch it instead. Whoops.
But that's the way it goes. Sometimes revenge can be sweet, and karma can certainly be whatever it is.
It's definitely karma that's got me. Anyway, it was an interesting watch, but I'm looking forward to discussing it with you in due course, Benji.
Magical. Well, that'll be later on. First, we've got the regular fixtures to get out of the way first. Lots to go. So first of all, obviously, Jamie, the man here, he is part of the fantastic Anderson family, and there is a Jerry Anderson store, is there not? Are we still sponsored by them for this podcast?
I don't think we are, which is embarrassing, bearing in mind that I'm here, so...
Oh, well, that's the end of that. Well, I mean, don't go that now, Jackie.
People should still visit the Jerry Anderson store for some good stuff, but you don't have to. Don't feel obliged.
There's plenty of good stuff. That's the thing. In fact, I was at Comic-Con on the Sunday, just wandering around in London, and I saw so many great Anderson goodies there, including, I think, my favourite one was the Space 1999 sort of moon-based kit.
Oh yes,
with working lights, which I rather liked. These sort of stadium lights. I thought, wow, it looked really impressive on the box. It's quite expensive as well, but I expect it was. There was part of me that just thought, oh, I'd love that. I'd no idea where I'd put it.
Well, I've seen people mount them on the wall, believe it or not.
No way, really?
Yeah. They look quite cool, up on the wall. In fact, you know what? So I've got some very nice man has made me a frame with a load of old 60s and 70s dinky toys mounted inside it.
Oh, awesome.
I'm hopefully going to get it in the next couple of weeks. It looks beautiful. I can't wait. So I love a bit of geekery.
But a gorgeous centerpiece as well, things like that. They're really, I love things like that where people around, they see it and think, oh wow, this is amazing. Then they can get really into it. But I suppose with the Space 1999 model, you could use it as a sort of fun lamp, couldn't you? So let me just turn the light on. It's quite flick. There go.
Some serious lengths to go to for a bit of novelty lighting, Benji. I think you could just do better with a bulb, to be honest.
To be fair, I'm a bit of a fan of novelty lighting. I've got one of those bulbs in here. You know, the ones that you can change the colour on your phone.
Oh, a hue, is it? Is it one of those?
It's not. Do you know what? This is one. I've got the Hive in my house, which is like a thing, and I've got a variety of different lights that I've used over the years. I used to use one called Easy Bulb, and the colours were gorgeous, but then they just decided to stop developing the app, so it doesn't work anymore. How irresponsible! But this one, the Hive one, isn't very good. Like the blues aren't blue enough for me. It really bugs me. Like I was used to like a deep blue, man, you know, like really real Starbase sort of vibe. But you know what I'm kind of left with is a sort of, it's just rubbish. It's just like a sort of not even inky blue. Like a
as deeply as upsetting as this is, we've really gone down a bizarre, blind, tangential alley here, Benji.
Well, that's part and parcel of being on the Benji and Nick show.
Really?
You never know what you're going to get, whether it's lights or novelty pencil sharpeners. You're bound to get it here. So I think it's only standard that we go on to the emails first of all, regular emails. So Jamie, would you like to read out our first email here?
Yes, I would dearly love to do that. Now, Anthony, who has written in, also writes into the Jerry Anderson podcast. And yes, from his email, it confirms that he is an Australian. So,
that does some good investigation there. Investigatory.
Yeah. He's a very nice chap and sends very nice emails. So I'm hoping this is a nice email. It'd be terrible if I read it out now and it was something offensive.
Just abuse, start to finish.
Well, the first thing is he's written, "Hi, Nick." So you don't get to mention Benji, and nor do potential guest covering hosts. Let's pretend
he's going to be very disappointed with this answer, isn't he?
Yeah, I know. So sorry in advance, Anthony. Hi, Nick. In your podcast, you often discuss recordings in your shed. Now, many men like a shed, and I was wondering if yours is, and then there's a bulleted list here, a makeshift affair of scattered electronic equipment next to potting mix, the lawnmower, weed killer, and a few egg cartons stapled to the wall, or a carpeted man cave with spongy, protuberant foam soundproofing, framed prints, neon lamps and rustic street signs, or a converted old World War II bunker or greenhouse. It could be a combination of the above, though I suppose shed in the UK may mean something different to the galvanised iron setup down under. Warm regards, Anthony.
Oh, it's certainly an interesting question there.
It's very specific.
It is very specific. I mean, we can do. I suppose we can try and sort of describe from what we've seen Nick's shed layout.
Well, I mean, it's weird trying to describe a building where you've only seen the inside and from one sort of camera angle.
It's very It's certainly. Well, it's certainly not a functioning shed like a one with lawnmowers and weed killers.
I've not seen any gardening stuff in there at all. So
no, I don't think it's that. I mean, a carpeted man cave with a spongy, protuberant foam soundproofing, frame prints, neon lamps, and rustic street signs. I don't know if it's carpeted.
I don't. I get the impression it's not carpeted.
Yeah, although Nick doesn't make a lot of noise when he gets up, so maybe there's like a thin layer of carpeting.
That's great analysis there.
Yeah, we could open our own detective agency. Shed specific. I think it's a sort of cozy man cave. Really, it's a functioning space. It's got his studio gear in there. It looks very nice.
It's very woody, isn't it?
It's very woody. It's very woody.
It's got a bit of a Swedish sauna vibe about it, I'd say.
I think, you know what? I think you're right. Perhaps what Nick doesn't tell us is that when he's chatting to us in there, he's got the coals are going on in the corner.
Yeah, if you hear the occasional tss as he puts the water on them, that must be it. Yeah.
That's it. We've cracked it. But my favourite feature of his shed is that he has loads of reflective tape on the outside of the shed to ward off seagulls.
Yes.
And it's fascinating because you see it all flickering in the background, but apparently it does work. Apparently, seagulls don't like reflective tape. So
there you go. Famous seagull botherer Nick Briggs there.
The seagull botherer. Yes, he's certainly a regular on the seagull deterrent scene. So Oh, Nick has actually got an answer for us for this one.
But it's much more boring than our answers, Benji.
It is, but, I like to think we can offer something. Neither of the above, Nick says. Somewhere in between. Not much glamour, but not horribly uncomfortable either. And then he says, can Benji and Jamie describe their current location? Well, would you like to go first, Jamie?
Yes. Well, I'm in my office, which is a relatively high-ceilinged room in an old barn in the middle of Wales, and until about 21 minutes ago, it smelt terribly of cat wee. But I've now identified the location of said cat wee and cleaned it up, and now it smells like a normal room again. There you go.
Oh, well, there we go. A romantic setting there for Mr. Jamie Anderson.
Where are you, Benji?
I am in it's my studio room in the house, which it's boiling hot here. And the problem with this is I've had the walls soundproofed in here, which is nice. But of course, what happens is that in the winter, it's lovely because it's the warmest room in the house. But in the summer, it's the warmest room in the house, which makes it utterly unbearable. But it's nice, it's got some nice little soundproofing panels and things to make the acoustics in here sound nice. And it's got a custom desk, which is slightly too high for the chair that I'm sitting on, resulting
you need
in
a cushion, Benji. A cushion will do it.
Do you know, I've never thought of that. I've never thought about using a cushion. What a great idea. It saves buying another chair. What is that? Jamie's holding up a super cushion there.
I've just exposed my cushioner, as it's called. It's a shaped memory foam cushion, Benji, and I can really recommend it. Not that I'm not sponsored by them.
Well, you can't like that. A real great way for it to remember the shape of your buttocks. I love the advertising photos of just different people sitting on this cushion. Do you know what? That's a great idea. I'm just thinking,
it does raise you up in a very satisfying way. I knew you were going to go there.
Couldn't resist. But there we go. So that is the official answer from Nick. The unofficial answer from Jamie and myself.
Ours were better.
Yes, well, there we go. And even a bit of cushion information there. So we have another email here. This one here from John Pettigrew. Hello, Benji and Nick. I'm totally loving the podcasts. At first, I thought that I'd only be interested in the shows I'd seen and/or grown up with, but now I find that it's the shows I've never heard of or just before my time that are most interesting. It means that I can always try to seek out new old stuff to watch. So, suggestions for future shows. There are obvious ones that you simply have to do, such as Sapphire and Steel, Robin of Sherwood, and maybe even Blake 7, if only because there are generations of people who have never seen it. All of those great suggestions. Certainly would like to cover Blake 7. Shock horror here. I've never seen Robin of Sherwood, and it's something that would be right up my avenue. I've seen bits of it, enough to kind of riff and enjoy it, and I can talk about it. But I'd like to switch into that one again. It says here as well, but then there are shows that I feel warrant some showcasing that may not comfortably fit into the sci-fi genre, but can only be described as cultish. I'm thinking of Metal Mickey, Alf, The Goodies, Please Sir, The Persuaders, Adam Adamant, Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, UFO. We've done a UFO one actually, a few podcasts back, which you might want to switch into, and the original Captain Scarlet. That would be awesome. Choice. That would be good, actually. That's a great idea, that one. There should even be a season of podcasts discussing Croft and Perry's masterpieces, Dad's Army, Ain't Our Fault Mum, Heidi High, You Rang My Lord. Do you know what? I bet Nick would love to talk about Dad's Army. He's a Dad's Army man, isn't he? He likes that.
He'd love it.
Well, the beautiful thing to remember here is that a lot of these aren't... we don't just do sci-fi, we do all sorts of things. So all of those are possibilities for the future, and it certainly means we've got plenty to be able to talk about there. Continuing with the email here, you have to do a whole podcast on a film that the pair of you can go on and on about a lot, and quite right too. It's one of my favourites, The Parole Officer. And if you start talking films, then you've got all the Star Trek films and the Bond films to dip into. I love The Parole Officer, but I don't think it's not a very popular film. It's one of those ones, if you've seen it, everybody can quote it. And if you haven't, you're going to think, why would I want to watch that?
I haven't seen it, Benji. Should I watch it?
I think you'd actually quite like it. I think you'd find it quite funny. It's of its time, but it is good fun. It is good fun. Steve Coogan, you can't beat him. Plays a character called Simon Garden. What a name.
Fantastic. I want to watch it already just from the name.
It's a good name. We've got here, will later American series be right for the pickings? The X-Files, Millennium, The Lone Gunman, The Sopranos. One of the strongest series I watched was Fringe. What was brilliant about Fringe was that if you got to the end of the first series, you were led to believe all it was a rip-off of The X-Files. But the end of the series and the entire next 3 series turned the whole premise upside down and become not only its own thing, but a brilliant piece of ARC TV. I'm also peed off that Lost, the series, was always knocked for being too difficult to follow and was made up from week to week. It obviously couldn't have been, as there is so much complex continuity, which is brilliant to watch and rewatch, as it has so many layers, e.g. the character of Locke and then the other character that appears after the death of Locke, who everyone, including the audience, just thought of was Locke. I'm hoping that sentence makes sense. Anyway, keep up the good work and cast those pods. Best wishes, John Pettigrew. Thank you very much, John. Well, we've lots to cover there. I've never seen Lost, mainly because when new things are on, I remember when this came out and it was huge, but when new things are on the telly, I often deliberately don't watch them. And I don't know why. It's just I watch it when it's no longer a big thing, and I have no idea why. I need to get out of that habit because I end up just missing out on everything.
Well, I think it's quite nice to enjoy things after everybody else has stopped going on about them, though.
Yeah, I mean, because it does get irritating.
I get a slight need for uniqueness feeling. So if everybody's saying, "Oh, you must watch this thing," I almost don't like it because of that. I found that recently with Love Island, Benji. I couldn't watch the thing, and I'm sure that's not down to the quality of the content. That just must be me. But I'm totally with you though. Watching it late is actually quite nice.
You know, I think you get a little bit of that, a little bit of retrospective satisfaction, I suppose. Really, I mean, Love Island is good, but torturous because it's just so long. It's like you just and then you can't make plans because people are like, oh, it's Love Island at this time. I'm like, well, can't you just record it? And they're like, oh no, I can't. I've got to watch it live, otherwise I'll miss out.
Come on.
And it's like, well, if I look on Twitter, it'll tell me what's happened. It's like, well, just don't look on Twitter then.
Nick will be so upset that I've dragged the tone of this podcast down to Love Island. Sorry, Nick.
Never mind though. The Love Island podcast here today. Jamie, we've got the final email here. Would you like to read this one out?
I can certainly try. Gosh, is that Anirin?
It's Anirin.
Anirin. A regular emailer, or do you just know how to pronounce that and I've got no idea?
A regular emailer, certainly of the Big Finish podcast, actually.
Okay. Well, Anirin, I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name. Dear Nick, brackets, Jamie Anderson, close brackets, and Benji.
There we go.
Thank you so much for including me, Anirin. That's very sweet of you. I have a question. What are the first TV shows you remember watching or know you watched as a kid? In my case, it's stuff like Pingu, Thomas, and the Teletubbies. I was obsessed with Thomas till around 6 or 7. One thing I was not allowed to watch very much was The Wiggles, since my dad could not stand it. That may make Nick think of some children's telly he can't stand and that Ben has watched. Also, is there a kids show you saw as a kid that you couldn't stand? Regards, Anirin. Well.
Interesting one.
What do you remember watching, Benji?
Well, I mean, okay, so I've got the first thing I remember watching, as in I remember my memories of it, was obviously Thomas. I remember that so well.
Me too.
Being a first thing, that was just, that was the world when it really was Thomas the Tank Engine. Subsequently, I can still hum all of the songs off by heart, despite not seeing it for years. The music has sort of been ingrained in my mind to this day, and I think certainly that got me into being interested in sound, actually, because I just used to hum all of the theme songs for the trains. I knew that was the important thing. They all had their different theme songs.
But that's a retro telly thing, which doesn't happen enough these days, I think. Location and vehicle and character themes, they were so cool. Just added an extra layer.
It does, and it's like things are instantly recognisable, aren't they? Whereas I think now it's, as well as that, like themes shows often had their own sound. Whereas everything now is trying to sound like this.
You'd say more homogenous now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just. I suppose it's because orchestral things are more affordable. Maybe, I don't know. You can get a higher quality of sound for not a lot of money.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whereas I don't know. That's a big question, that one. But just going back to the question really quickly. But the first thing I remember watching on terrestrial television was Playdays, and I loved that. And I loved Playdays because my favourite was the roundabout stop, which in retrospective was not one of the best stops. But the stops, it was like a bus, and so every week it stopped at a different place.
You've just sparked some memories. Was the Y-Bird in it?
The Y-Bird was part of, the Y-Bird. I think it had its own stop, didn't it? Y-Bird had a stop.
Yeah.
But that was the first thing I remember. And I liked the roundabout stop because the chap who ran it, Mr. Jolly, sounds like I know him, looked just like my dad. So it was cute. It was like a fondness for him. So yeah, it's memories. Jamie, what about you? Here's an interesting one.
Well, you've got me thinking about the Y-Bird now. Was she Liverpudlian?
Possibly. Do you know what? I want to Google this. Possibly. I remember exactly what the Y-Bird looked like.
Yeah, she was sort of grey and red and green, was she? And
and sort of and had a sort of rounded beak.
Yeah, I've not thought about the Y-Bird for a long time. While you're looking that up, Thomas the Tank Engine, absolutely. All the models and the old style stuff with the fat controller. I had a Thomas the Tank Engine bedspread.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah, which was great. I weirdly have quite strong memories of watching Dave Benson Phillips and Get Your Own Back.
Oh, I loved Get Your Own Back. That was so good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So good.
That was great fun, and people slipping over in the gunge, and Dave Benson Phillips' wicked laugh.
Yeah, they're sort of huge. I tell you what I used to like about that show was it would always be like, and why do you want to bring your mum on the show? Because she made me do my homework when I wanted to watch television. Yeah. He's like, oh.
And then all the audience of kids go, boo! Yeah. Double thumbs down. Yeah.
So funny. Funny.
Why hasn't somebody brought that back? That feels like it's something that's ripe for 21st century reinvention.
I bet you he would bring it back. I always feel sorry because he was so good at his job, and he's sort of, you don't hear from him anymore. He doesn't do an awful lot.
Here's a boring fact for you, Benji. I am connected to Dave Benson Phillips on LinkedIn.
No way. Hey.
So I might drop him a message. He won't reply, but you never know. Just say, we mentioned you on this show, Dave. Bless him.
And come and do more.
Yeah.
Come and. I know that he tours universities and gunges people.
Oh, amazing.
I know that he does that. He has his own little thing, and but yeah, it'd be really good, wouldn't it, to have him? Oh, I've just got the Y-Bird up.
Is she Liverpudlian? I really hope she is. In my head, she sounds like Cilla Black.
She's got a tinge. She does sound a bit like Cilla Black, but she's more sort of, I suppose, it's just generic voice, really.
Oh, isn't it funny how your sort of childhood brain conflates things and makes stuff up?
Yeah, she could be. I don't know, but certainly, the Y-Bird flapping around there.
Yeah, she flapped. Anyway, nobody wants to hear about the Y-Bird.
The Y-Bird
obviously,
podcast.
Then I was given a VHS of Day of the Daleks when I was
great.
3. It was called The Day of the Daleks on the VHS because it was the misprinted cover, and from there began endless watching and a Doctor Who obsession. So that's the other thing I watched.
Interesting story, that one. Great story itself, but poorly executed in terms of the Dalek voices are shocking. Music's quite good, but it's a weird one. I never warmed to it as a kid.
Yeah, isn't it funny that turned me on to Doctor Who for a lifetime? That story of all of them.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's funny. That's it's an interesting one. That, but was it the controller, the pantomimish controller on there?
Was it? Yeah, see, I liked him.
He looked terribly pale, didn't he?
Yeah, did they have like a silver treatment on the skin or something? Or was he just not a healthy man?
He's not a healthy man. You can't be healthy to work for the Daleks, can you? But yeah, there we have it. That's the emails this week. If you want to email in the future, you can email at podcast@nicholasbriggs.com, or alternatively, you can go to our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/The Benji and Nick Show, and there's a little button on there that says email now, or send something here, or do whatever. Let me have a look exactly. Let's have a look exactly what it says.
It's got some words on it, and you should probably click it, and it might get a message through.
It says send email with a little pen.
Lovely.
Just in case you didn't know what send email means. But yeah, send them away, because that would be cool, and we'd love to hear from you.
A pen, Benji, is completely irrelevant to an email, really. So it's a foolish icon to use, I would say.
But what would you use apart from maybe the @, or
an @ or the universal envelope symbol, which is also not really that relevant anymore. But yeah, funny, isn't it? Anyway, not funny, not interesting. But click the button and send them an email, and don't address it to me, because next week I'm sure Nick will be back.
there we go. That's it. The words there from Mr. Jamie Anderson. Of course, we have got Starfleet, which we're going to talk about later on. But first, we have the competition results. Now, we had a week extra on this competition. So, Jamie, do you want to read out what this competition answer is?
Yeah, I could read this whole thing, which is going to be a surprise to me when I get through it. The prizes, do you want to know what the prizes are?
I'd love to.
Yeah, The Prisoner, The Essential Guide, colour guidebook to the series, and The Prisoner, The Essential Interviews Volume 1, which are Patrick McGowan's last prisoner interview, recorded in 1990 and released in 2018, following restoration by lovely Mark Ayres.
A very talented man.
The question was set by Rick Davey from the Unmutual, and it was, what is the connection between The Nightmare Man and Big Finish's reimagining of The Prisoner? Well,
ooh,
do you know?
Interesting one there.
I mean, I know. Because the answer is written in front of me.
Because I've just read the answer.
Excellent. It's a good way to find the answer. Well, the answer was Celia Imrie, because Celia was one of the stars of The Nightmare Man, and she starred in 2 episodes of Big Finish's version of The Prisoner, namely Departure and Arrival and The Schizoid Man. There you go.
Yeah, makes sense. She's on the cover, isn't she, I believe?
She is, in her scarf, looking quite scary, actually, quite headmistressy.
Very much so,
Yeah.
very much so.
Do you want to name the winner, Benji?
Oh, I will, yes. So the answer to this one is Ben Wiseman of Queensland, Australia. Yes.
This is a very Antipodean episode, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You never know with this podcast. It's all out there.
So international.
Continental, oh boy, continental. That's like a breakfast. And Rick Davey of the Unmutual, he'll be sending those prizes to you as fast as his speedboat can go, or maybe he'll be travelling via rover. Who knows? Or in a rover, maybe a Metro. Could be a 75. You just don't know.
When I was growing up, when I was a kid, Mum and Dad had an Austin Metro.
What a car!
And,
what a car!
That was very cute in a retro way. Anyway,
we used to have one. We had one for a short while. We had one as a courtesy car back in the day, and I remember we used to just nickname it the Bone Shaker because it was just the whole way. Yeah, Austin became. Was it Austin became? Austin took over Rover. Rover took over Austin. That's the way. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. What a fantastic. More next week on the car podcast.
Top-notch retro car bants right there, Benji.
Yeah, I mean, I think things have gone downhill, haven't they, since old British Leyland, sadly, stopped manufacturing cars. I'm more of a maxi sort of man myself. I like the Princess as well.
It must be hot in there, Benji.
Boiling. I've got this
bonkers.
rubbish little window which just doesn't let in any air, and of course I can't have a fan on because then it'd just sound like Air Force One with me in front of a microphone. But anyway, we're just riffing it now. But congratulations to you, Ben. Hopefully you'll get your goods soon. And there will be more competitions, not this week, but I'm sure we'll sort something out for you in the near future. And yeah, get some stuff out of there. Magic. So before we talk about Starfleet, we do have a lovely little a message from the real Nicholas Briggs. Nick has is aware that a lot of people wanted to know what his opinions were on last week's Star Trek episode, and so he's written about that, and he's also got some words to say about this week's Starfleet episode. So what we'll do is let's hear from the real Nicholas Briggs.
Firstly, I'm gutted to have missed chatting about Balance of Terror, possibly my favourite ever Star Trek episode. Probably because I made an audio recording of it in 1974 from off of the telly. Star Trek was an odd one for me. When it replaced Doctor Who in 1969 after, for me, the surprise departure of Patrick Troughton, I treated it like an imposter in the Doctor Who time slot, but didn't belong there. Also, I think it was a tiny bit too adult for me at that time. But I was later persuaded to watch it by friends who lured me in by telling me there were real laser effects on it, which somehow made it worth watching. I was obsessed with special effects in those days. I actually started reading the James Blythe story adaptations first, you know, the Star Trek books with the big numbers on the front. Anyway, on to Starfleet. I was really surprised how much I liked it when I watched it yesterday, between coughing and feeling lousy. I remember it as hangover TV on Sundays when I was a student. I think I thought I was hallucinating the first time I watched it. Some points I'd like to make on rewatching it. The voices are largely annoying and borderline racist in many cases. All the villains are unconvincing foreigners. The model shots are very good. I didn't spot a single string or wobble during the first episode. But my favorite thing of all is the unintentionally hilarious vocal improvisation in the scenes where characters are required to mumble agreement or talk amongst themselves. They're so feeble and silly. Really made me laugh. Nice to hear those space 1999 sound effects in the too. Definitely for kids, and I wasn't a kid when I first watched it, so the rosy tint of nostalgia isn't quite materializing for me here. Still worth a watch though. 2 exclamation marks out of 5.
And there we have it from the real Nicholas Briggs.
Absolutely, it's so good to hear him sounding so well.
It does. I think that he may have a bit of a sore throat, but it's undoubtedly is him.
It's affected his pronunciation slightly on some things. I mean, but as much as a fan as I am of Patrick Troughton, I'm not quite sure that's how it's said, Nick. Never mind.
Yes.
And I was also very pleased to hear how surprised he was.
I just love. What was my favourite bit on there was as well. Was it really made me laugh. Complete deadpan.
Nick's a comedy genius, so
he is. He knows. He knows.
Even though he's
doing.
not live with us now, he's still upstaged both of us.
He certainly has, but we've got Nick's opinions there on both Star Trek and Starfleet, and a bit of a star theme going on there. We both watched the episode, so the funny thing I will say here, my gosh, my glasses have steamed up. The funny thing I would say is that both myself and Nick went into this feeling like we were going to utterly hate this episode from start to finish. And
you miserable sods.
Well, we just, from my memory of it, it wasn't great. But yeah, we both actually really enjoyed it, and I found myself really quite surprised about this. Jamie, what do you think about Starfleet on a general basis?
Are you trying to avoid me saying anything mean about it?
We'll delve into it afterwards. But generally, looking at it, just this is this.
Well, I mean, people have told me over and over again to watch it, and I've actually always avoided watching the show. Not for any particular reason. Just I thought, I don't really have any connection to it, and I know that Dad was aware of it back in the day when it was being made, because it was being made just prior to Terrorhawks, and I also was expecting to hate it, and I didn't hate it. Hate is too strong. I really liked some bits and pieces from it, but there were so many bits where it kind of missed the mark, and you could see it was inspired by Jerry Anderson shows.
Definitely, undoubtedly.
And there are some kind of lovely bits, but I just feel like if you're going to try and, make something that's inspired by another show, then you've set your bar quite high, because the Supermarionation shows in the 60s, they were so special and they had such an amazing team working on them. I can't help but in my mind watch this with a split screen, so when there's a kind of an effect being done, I can instantly see how Derek Meddings and Brian Johnson would have done it, and it just doesn't work for me in so many bits. I'm like, oh no, what a shame. Which is a great shame, because a lot of those ships and stuff are quite cool, actually.
There are some really good little ships and elements in there. I mean, the thing that stood out for me when comparing it to an Anderson production is that this Starfleet sort of lacks the scale, I suppose, of the Anderson style of doing things. Whereas your dad's work, everything, the world was very big and believable, and you kind of, every little detail was in there, and whether they're in a small office or whether you're at a huge airport, you got a kind of idea of the scale and what was going on. But with this show, it kind of felt very enclosed, bland, and sort of not a lot was going on in these spaces. I mean, obviously space itself is bland and empty. But I assume, I've never been up there.
It looks quite kind of big and empty from up down here, doesn't it, when you look up?
To go on forever. I mean, you
really
get to a point where you think, I've seen that before.
But you're right, though. I mean, there's every aspect of it for me. It was lacking in scale, and there are a few reasons for that. I think in terms of like the sets were all quite cramped. When you're in an interior, the sets were pretty small. When you had an exterior, there were a couple of model shots where the Pluto, is it Pluto? The Pluto base is being blown up. But a lot of the other locations were just matte paintings, and they were lovely paintings, but they are instantly flat and don't have the depth, and they just aren't that convincing. And when you've got those shots of stuff going on in space, you never really get very far away from the vehicles. It's all very close up, like they were trying to kind of show off the detail of the vehicles. Yeah. Whereas actually, if they pulled back, it would have felt like it was bigger scale. So there's a lot of stuff about the way it was made which makes it feel small. But then things in terms of scale as well, almost all the model shots, as far as I could tell, were filmed at standard frame rate, as in 24 or 25 frames a second. Whereas if you want to give a model scale, you've got to film it high speed. So when it's played back, any of those little wobbles and strange movements that are associated with something being small, the wobble is slowed down so dramatically by sort of 4 or 5 times that it suddenly looks much bigger. And they didn't do that. So that almost all the model shots, to me, they look too quick. They look kind of, the things are nipping by, or the way they move just isn't convincing. I feel like I'm being really cruel about this show.
No, but I think what you're saying is incredibly interesting, because it is when you look at anything like this, you have to look at how it's made and the methods in which it's made, because that's, I suppose it becomes what it is. But I agree with you. I mean, there are certain bits in it which are like those scenes where the X-Bomber, which is the name of their big ship, when you're in the sort of the turrets, the gun turrets, and swiveling around. I thought that was very cool, but it did feel a bit. It felt sort of like a toy. Like the movement, it was just. I suppose it is that it just, the frame rate aspect of it kind of cheapened it a little bit. Yeah,
and every time it kind of reaches one extreme of movement, the little puppet kind of shakes around.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing I think that I found a bit, not disturbing, that's the wrong word, but the puppets themselves, it was bizarre how lifeless I found them. And one of the things with that is that the eyes were matte. They were just painted onto a matte surface, so they had none of the gloss or life and light catching them that a Supermarionation puppet had. And I cannot in my head avoid drawing this comparison. So there's things like that. I mean, Makara, Commander Makara, the lead baddie, played by Denise Breyer, who was also Zelda in Terrorhawks. I've seen pictures of the character, but I'd never really seen any video of it. And so then when the little evil face over her, was it her left eye? Over her left eye started talking. I started to think it's quite a cool little idea, but it's certainly got a real kind of Japanese twist to it. You can feel where it's come from.
I felt that was unnecessary. Anyway, it didn't have a lot of point. I mean, with in terms of the characters, and I suppose perhaps I could be very wrong, but I felt it was kind of a superficial way to kind of sell toys. Really, if I'll be honest, they all looked incredibly cool.
Ouch!
But they all look like toys. They look like, oh, that would be a great idea for a toy. Oh, that would be, I could see all of these things. I suppose it doesn't exist anymore. There's a toy chain that I used to go to as a kid called Gamley's, which I think is just a southeast English thing. But I know that if I walked in, I could see the layout now. I bet you they'd all be there, and kids would buy them even if they didn't know what the show was because they looked particularly cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting enough. I'm on the Wikipedia here. And it says here it was billed in Japan as being filmed in Super Mario Rama.
Yeah.
Similar puppeteering process to Jerry Anderson's Super Marionation. Yeah, come on.
I mean, if you're gonna do that, I think really you've got to up your game. And there's other bits and pieces. Like actually, the sequence where the alien ships are flying over the Pluto base and blowing it up. There was some really nice pyrotechnics there, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, I know the exact ones you're talking about.
That was quite a cool sequence, although there's a lot that feels very Star Wars derived, including the gun turrets in the X-Bomber and that sequence of them, that's very much kind of sort of flying around the Death Star kind of vibe to it. But things like when the models are in space and being blown up, they're filmed, perpendicular to the floor, so when they blow up, the smoke floats upwards towards the ceiling as it would, but obviously in space that wouldn't happen. So Brian Johnson and co on Space 1999 would film from underneath so that the debris would fly towards you, so it had the effect of looking like it was spreading out in all directions. And there's little things like that which would have, for me, made it a lot more convincing, would have really changed the kind of the look and feel of it. But I did enjoy bits of it, and the craft were quite cool. There was a kind of credible threat, which actually made me think of something like Captain Scarlet. But yeah, I almost wanted to go on and watch the second episode, but I didn't quite have the impulse to click the button to do so.
So yeah, I think you everything you said there I think is completely right. I mean, there's one aspect I hate about it is the main characters themselves. What a bunch of dweebs. What a bunch of dorks. Why are we going to like them?
Well, it's okay to have an aspirational dork, but none of them were aspirational. They were all a bit annoying, I thought.
I'm sorry, but how can anybody get behind a hero called Barry Hercules? It's not cool. It's Captain Scott. Paul Metcalf is a kind of that's got that's his normal name, Captain Scott. But Barry Hercules, he sounds like a car salesman, doesn't he? Hi there, I'm Barry Hercules. I got a Rover Metro over here. It's got your name on it.
Only 995. I instantly thought of Barry Scott from the Sillet Bang commercials as well when he said Barry Hercules. This is the sort of 80s Sillet Bang man. I mean there was nothing heroic about them, and also when it got to the kind of the crunch point, they travelled all the way across from Earth to the moon, right? As the kind of the special pilots who were going to save the place, and then they get there when the X-Bomber is 90% completed, which someone says, oh, well, that means it's nearly done. No, that means it's a whole tenth away from being done. I mean, that's like, I don't know, a wheel on a car is maybe a tenth, probably less than a tenth, and missing one of those is a big problem. So, anyway.
Going into space.
I know. It's got no kind of seals on it, and, the air leaks out, but it's nearly done. A bit weird. But they get all the way there, and then at the last minute, they sort of go, well, I'm not really up for this. I mean, I know that mankind as we know it is probably going to be destroyed, but I'd rather just just go and, let them blast me into smithereens. And then the pretty lady turns up.
Yeah.
And they all go, whoa, yeah, let's do it. She might like us then. I mean, it's such a bizarre moment. But I do like that little hovering spheroid thing. What's it called? PPA?
I have no idea what it's called.
PAP? I don't know. It's a three-letter acronym, isn't it? Perfectly programmed android, did they say?
A friendly character, nice. It reminds me of. You ever played the Fallout games? Are you a gamer?
Yes, I love Fallout.
You know that. What's that in Fallout 4? That robot. That's the one that says, "Oh, hello, sir."
Yeah.
Can't remember his name. Coggingsworth or something. Coggington or something. Cogsworth.
Yes.
It reminded me of that actually.
Very similar.
Very similar.
Cogsworth's more, if that is his name, is more likable than the yellow thing.
Oh God, yes.
Which couldn't land on the table because it had a little grapple instead of an appendage hanging down between its legs, shall we say, which got in the way of its landing. Very odd. Should we say some nice things about this, Benji? Because I really feel like we've put it through the ringer.
that's part and parcel of reviewing something is saying the things that come to your mind. I mean, the thing that I loved about this was the soundtrack. I just thought the music was awesome. I think it was made by, composed by Paul Bliss, who was actually from the Moody Blues. I think so. In my head,
really?
I want to say that he was from the Moody Blues. Yeah.
The bit where I first thought, oh, actually, I like this music, because I'm not that convinced by the theme. It's a bit generic, and we'll just use this like motif that sounds like Starfleet. Da da. I mean, it's a bit. Come on. But when Makara's ship turns up and comes towards camera, there's a great kind of synth 80s Cybermen sound, which obviously through Doctor Who, to my mind, means the baddies are here. So that was really nice, and from then I kind of was tuned into the music and quite enjoyed it.
All those things like that, I thought exactly the same. I thought, this is very much like a big empire sort of evil theme. I think that the thing that I was most pleased about, weirdly enough, was before I actually looked up what he was using, I guessed that he was using an Oberheim synthesizer, purely because I always think that this is so geeky, but who cares? I always think that Oberheim synthesizers sound a bit fizzy. They've got a little fizz on them, which I know. I thought, that sounds very. I know it's got a little fizz on that there. I looked it up. Not only was it the Oberheim synthesizer, but also an Oberheim drum machine, which gives it that very distinct synth snare sound that you get of this sort of. It's quite an interesting one. But the soundtrack's great. I'd happily listen to that on its own and it'd probably enjoy it. I mean, obviously it wouldn't, just to listen to it. I'd listen to it because I wanted to listen. Know what I mean? I'm not going to put it on if I'm charming guests.
That would be great dinner party music. What's that soundtrack playing there, Benji? Oh, it's the Starfleet soundtrack.
It's Starfleet, yes.
Great choice.
Often known as X-Bomber.
Can I give you an interesting, well, in inverted commas, interesting fact?
Certainly.
I just discovered when watching the end of that Tony Lenny was the supervising editor on it, and I guess he was responsible for the sound and music editing and the English dialogue and all that sort of stuff. Tony Lenny was the music editor on Stingray, and then went on to be editor on Terrorhawks as well.
So that, in terms of with Terrorhawks at that time, these two were made presumably quite close together.
I think this was 81, 82, and they started pre-production on Terrorhawks 81, 82. So Terrorhawks was maybe 8 to 12 months behind this, and I'm sure I heard that when Dad saw this on TV or heard that this was coming, he went, "Oh no, someone's tried to do what we've done on Terrorhawks." And then he saw it and went, "Oh no, it's fine." But people thought it was a Jerry Anderson show.
That's the thing. It's you look at it, and if you're not informed, you would assume that because I suppose with the Jerry Anderson, it's sort of that is the genre. It's a genre within itself, and you assume that when you're watching a production like this, you assume that's what it is.
Who else would be daft enough to make something with models and puppets, eh?
Well, the team of Starfleet who executed it not quite as effectively.
What a cruel review.
It's true. But having said that, I did enjoy it. I didn't dislike it.
No,
I watched it and I thought it was pretty good.
I enjoyed it when I wasn't watching it with an overly analytical eye. But some of those puppet hairdos, though.
Yeah,
goodness me, those weird beards.
The beard as well. Beard. There was not even an attempt to make it look ever so slight. Like it was just like one dead snip. Not even a little bit of kind of careful.
It was lacking the finesse of all the Supermarination shows. I don't know if this show exists anywhere in HD, but I bet if it does, it doesn't hold up very well. Whereas the Supermarination shows, everybody was working in such fine detail that they look even better in HD than they did in standard definition. I do want to watch some more Starfleet, to be fair, having seen it. But I don't think I'll make it through all 20 whatever it is episodes.
I think that's a perfect way to kind of sum that up, really, because I feel exactly the same. I feel I'd like to watch more, but I know that I'm not going to reach it to the end, especially not going to reach it to the end when there's no distinct line between the preview of the next episode and the end of the episode. Out of nowhere it just says, and with this happening next week, this is happening. It's like, come on, can't you have like a fade to black, bam, now we know, or a thing saying next week? But I was just like, what's going on? Is this happening? Have you just summed this up for me? What's going on?
Yeah, it's like they've kind of run out of time and had to squeeze it in somehow.
Crazy. But yeah, I think Nick gave it a 2 exclamation marks out of 5. I'm willing to give it a 2.5, but we'll go with 2 because once we start adding halves in, it just doesn't become punctuation.
How do you do half? It just looks like a small exclamation mark or a
full
capital
stop.
I, or you're in all sorts of trouble there. I'll go with 2 as well.
Okay, so there we have it. So Starfleet, 2 out of 5 exclamation marks. Interesting one. What are we going to do next week? That's going to be fun. Jamie, any ideas? Any thoughts? Or?
Well, you had a brilliant list of stuff.
We
in
do
one of those
have
emails,
a great,
didn't you?
We do have a great list.
I think you should do a Randall and Hopkirk deceased, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, because that was one of my BBC Two evening cult shows that I really enjoyed watching as a kid, and I haven't watched it for a while, so I'd love to hear what you and Nick think of it.
Yeah, okay. Well, then, in that case, next week, Randall and Hopkirk deceased will be put under the microscope here on the Benji and Nick show. Now, of course, it is time to head into the microphone here as we say our goodbyes.
And we're back
in
now.
From me here at Starfleet Base, it is goodbye.
And from me at the soon-to-be-destroyed Pluto base, goodbye, think of me, and thanks for having me again.
Well, thank you for filling in today. Much appreciated. And remember, visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Benji and Nick Show. And also rate and review us, please. That'd be wonderful.
Oh, and subscribe.
Oh, yes, sub too. Yes, subscribe. That would be nice. Thank you ever so much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Pressing stop now. Ka-chunk.